Okay, so what I plan to do with this particular talk is I'm going to give you a quick overview of the agenda here, and you can see the first part of it is really just talking about the fourth industrial revolution, talking about exponential technology in the smart technology era. And the smart technology era is just my term for the fourth industrial revolution, and I'm going to quickly talk about that, but then I'm going to move to what is AI-driven digital transformation? What does it mean for a business to actually transform itself? And then specifically going to talk about AI adoption and some use cases. And then I want to go to the man-machine intelligence continuum. And it's really all about how do we as humans adapt in this new world. So I'm going to refer a little bit to that. I've got some interesting slides showing that. And then if we think about just implementing AI solutions, and you think about the responsibility that we've got as AI implementers in terms of implementing responsible solutions that's trustworthy as well. So I'm going to talk about trustworthy AI, and then finally I'll end with jobs and futures of AI and have a little comment or slide or two just on the state of the art of AI and improving the state of art in AI. So before I do that, I just want to quickly talk about Cortex Logic briefly, as I'm representing Cortex Logic. Cortex Logic, we're very excited about this business. I've been in AI my whole career. So my first AI company I sold to General Electric was Season Systems back in 2011. After that, I founded Cortex Logic, and I'm going to talk about MIIA as well. But Cortex Logic, we live in a different era. We live in the API economy. It's plug and play. So I like to call it the next generation AI company that's unlocking value from all available data, structured and unstructured. And when we think about operationalizing AI, it's how do we operationalize it? You need to be like an engine that you embed in the business to actually create end-to-end solutions. And we've got 4 solution categories. If you think about all the applications that people are talking at the conference, what we've done here is just say we need on-demand personalized services. So we've got one category around personalized. If you think about customer-facing data, you want to say, I want to look at churn. So we've got an AI churn prediction. We know it's a risk, big thing for businesses. You think about risk on all levels. There's credit risk, there's other types of risk, insurance, healthcare-related risks. AI prices, things like dynamic pricing, recommendation engines. We think about how good Amazon, Netflix, all those companies are around recommendations and things like that as well. Incredible opportunities for business to do the same for their products. And then also engage is more kind of if you think about the human-computer interface and how we can engage with customers, we can optimize that. We can work smarter at scale. So that is really AI Assist is more the intelligent virtual assistants and robo-advisors and AI email and AI autodoc, those type of applications. We've got machine learning, reading email, reading the content of emails, reading, interpreting it, replying to that, doing OCR, all those kind of nice stuff. And the key thing is how do you do this in an end-to-end fashion that's completely integrated into the customer's environment. And then enhance is things like predictive maintenance, process optimization, all of those type of solutions where we do real-time causal analysis. Say you've got a jet engine, there's about 3,000 sensors there, and you can create a model of this, and you can in flight actually indicate if there's something going wrong, or maybe give information about potential maintenance that's necessary, so you can be predictive around that as well. And then sense is, I think this is the beauty. Data is being generated at an exponential rate. Data utilization is linear. That gap is increasing all the time. So I think with sense, what we're saying is it's not just the structured data, but also the unstructured data, the video, audio, text, all of that data, you can create solutions around that, which is pretty exciting. So we're end-to-end around these kind of things. And Cortex Logic is also part of the Cortex group. And Nick Bradshaw that sits here, he yesterday in his talk announced Cortex Ventures, which is part of the group, more a VC AI-focused initiative that we've got. Very excited about that. And it's kind of built on the AI communities that we've got in Africa. as well. So the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, IA Expo, and other communities in Africa. These entrepreneurs, we want to support the entrepreneurs as well. So this is just part of the group. In the group, we also have asset management. We've got state-of-the-art AI trading. We've got precision medicine for oncology. We're in healthcare as well. And there's some other things as well, telecoms and so forth. But on the left-hand side, that's Cortex, really being an AI engine for our businesses, but for other enterprises as well. And MIIA, final comment just here, it's an innovative community. It started 2016, and it's really about transforming Africa through smart technologies. How do we do this? But it's people that's going to make it happen. And you can go to machineintelligenceafrica.org for more information on that. Okay, so that's that. I want to dig into the presentation. My massive transformative purpose in business, I had time to reflect, how can we make an impact? And I was inspired by some of the visionary leaders in Africa as well. And that led to a founding of Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa and also Cortex and Cortex Logic in the group, is really how can we shape a better future? As a human race, we've got opportunity to shape a better future, a more equitable society for all of us in this fourth industrial revolution, in the smart technology era. And I call it the smart technology era is a bit more generic. It's not just AI technology. AI is exponential technology, one of the key ones, but there's other incredible technologies that's also exponential that actually works nicely with AI as well to unlock value. So I'm going to skip a few things here. I just want to quickly mention this. Litsi yesterday showed a similar kind of slide, but he had more kind of a knowledge perspective on the whole slide. Here I'm looking at the 4 industrial revolutions, and very briefly summarizing it is saying the first one was about mechanizing production. The second one was about creating mass production. The third one is automating production. And the fourth one is, now we're adding the AI and the smart automation. So it's really the fusion of all these other technologies, exponential technology, to create that. And I always show these kind of slides, but I think it's so critical for business. Agility, to be fast and agile, is absolutely critical. And I think this is where kind of businesses need partners to help accelerate them as well. So in a new world, it's not the big fish which eats the small fish, it's the fast fish which eats the slow fish. And we're going to see this movie play out over the next few years, especially in this space. In the smart technology space, you will see more and more businesses across multiple industries where this is happening. So disruption is really getting simpler and easier. I always show this slide as well. So here I've got some of these exponential technologies. And you can see what's happening here is we're sitting on exponential curves. As humans, we see time linear. And what we see with exponential technologies, they are on these kind of exponential curves, but it's the combination of these technologies that serves as building blocks to actually build fantastic, valuable solutions as well that's impactful, disruptive, etc. And I like this slide as well because this is a slide actually from Softbank. Softbank has got the world's biggest VC fund. I think it's $100 billion. And they pretty much just invest in AI-driven companies. That's what they do. So what's interesting here, this is on the y-axis, it's showing business value unlocking from various industries and technologies. And you can see agriculture, fishery, metals, a lot of value unlocked over time. And then on top of that, industrial, financial, and you see internet, and then you see the AI era on top of that. And just the last 25 years, the interesting thing here is you can see the exponential nature of the internet era, but we're just entering the AI era. So unbelievable opportunities. You're at the right place, harness your skills, get better at this, solve problems, incredible opportunities to unlock value. And we know, this is just a comment from, this is from Google CEO, we will move from a mobile first to an AI first world. So this is reality that we live in now. I'm going to skip some of these slides because we are at Deep Learning Indaba conference. I know I didn't explain deep learning and why we need it and so forth. I just want to share a few things before I go to the other points on the agenda. And this is just recently produced by 2019, I think it's MC Ventures. This is showing the European AI startup landscape. And you can see the industry focuses. The interesting thing is healthcare and finance. So kind of ironic, it's similar to our focuses as well. We're looking at multiple industries, but healthcare and finance is getting significant attention, but you can see also the startups. In Europe, you see the same story. We see media entertainment there, retail, other industries there as well. This is showing a startup application focus. And I think even from a VC perspective, there's typically a recommendation to be very focused in terms of what you deliver. And interestingly enough, 23% is focusing on marketing and customer service is 16%. But you get some sort of idea of what these AI startups think, or at least feel comfortable with from an applications perspective. But anyway, so if you think about business, and this talk is about operationalizing AI and helping businesses thrive in the smart technology era. And I always start with businesses when we do these AI workshops with the executives of these corporates or enterprises. You start with the end in mind. You think about the value drivers. And this is actually value drivers across multiple industries. And it's things like the typical things. Well, it's a business, so it's productivity is important, revenue is important, reducing risk, lowering costs. So you see very specific initiatives around that. But I think the other story around this is we live in a data-centric world, and data is the new gold or new oil. So it provides unbelievable opportunities to create new revenue growth and new business models. And then for customer-facing businesses, on-demand, personalized services is absolutely critical. We see this already with many of the tech players. So incredible opportunities to unlock value. But you still need a 360-degree view of your customers. So the data mining, that personalization is very important. This is just showing, as a slide, just showing the innovation, efficacy, velocity, and scalability as well. You see the benefits there, and then specific explainers and examples for this. And now innovation, we know about the Teslas, the autonomous vehicles, the voice control devices. With efficacy, you see fraud detection and customer segmentation, velocity, legal document processing. It's not only that, we see this also with that AI email examples that I've mentioned as well. So it's more kind of machine learning, robotic process automation, not just rules-based, but you've got machine learning, looking at patterns and trying to automate that. So, and then scalability is another big one as well. So I'm just going to quickly mention a point here, and then I'll move to the others. This is, if you think about any business, there's 5 pillars. And the Industrial Data Corporation prescribed this. I've applied this at companies before. And it starts with the use cases, the sources of value. So when you try and say, what is the thing that I'm going to do? You start with the business value, the use cases, the story. Then the other 4 is data, technology, process, and people. And if you want to accelerate, then obviously you want to bring this curve back. So this is time. And if you want to implement data, technology, people, intent, and processes, you implement AI solutions within this framework, and you want to accelerate things, then this is just showing the things that you need. Data availability, there's obviously the computing, distributed computing, analytic tools and platforms. You need the skills. You need to align your organization. And obviously the process and change management is very important. So you need to think about, if I implement this intelligent virtual assistant, what's the effect on my business, on my customers, and all the stakeholders? So there's a responsibility that a company has. You just can't just do a little cool app and think, oh, that's cool. We think holistically about what's the impact and how you actually need to adapt to that. And the cool thing is, you can't manage if you can't measure. So this thing is just showing, but you can actually look at all 5. You can plot this radar chart, and you can see, am I in an ad hoc, opportunistic, repeatable, managed, or optimized state? So you can see exactly where you are when you implement these kind of solutions. And I think it's important to have these frameworks in mind as you implement these kind of solutions. I'm going to just skip a few things here. Obviously in healthcare, there's unbelievable applications, and I'm going to make the slides available so that everyone can look at this in detail. But in the interest of time, I want to get to some other interesting slides. So if you're looking about the sector's leading AI adoption, the interesting thing is, and I think we also find this as well, is that you've got the financial services and high tech and telecoms leading the way. And it's interesting, I was at AI Tech Week, another conference, where they actually did an exponential organization rating on all the companies on the JSE. And guess what was the company that was coming out on top? discovery. Next one was interesting for the international players, and it was the telecoms. It was MTN and Vodacom. I think Vodacom and then MTN. But anyway, plenty of opportunity to unlock value. And so, thanks for the background music. So if you think about the insurance and software IT services, this is where you see the AI adoption. And it's also uneven. It's not the same, even within the industries. So it varies. We've seen that. But it's clear, purely based on time spent processing, collecting data, finance and insurance, you see, and also retail, transport, trade, you can see significant time spent so preparing for these kind of applications. And it starts with the data. You need rapid access to all available data if you want to build these kind of solutions. And if you think about what's really happening out there, are people deploying AI? Well, not a lot. Only 14%. This was, I think, was done by Gartner 2019, showing, and it was only about 3,000 answers to this particular questionnaire. But you can see the potential is enormous. There's some plans around this, but obviously one needs to bring that to reality as well. So big opportunities to unlock value. I'm going to quickly skip some of this. Let me just quickly go to, this is some very interesting stats, etc. Now, quickly, so we are at Deep Learning Indaba conference. So this was also recent information from that MMC Ventures 2019. And it was actually looking at the listed professions compared with 5 years ago. And basically they see an increase in individuals listed professions compared to 5 years ago. You see a 1 time, 0 times to 10 times. And machine learning engineer and data scientist came out on top, especially machine learning engineer. It looks like people don't want to call themselves necessarily data scientists. I'm a machine learning engineer. So you can see the trend there. And this is the AI developer level of education. 60% of AI developers have a master's or doctoral degree. That's interesting. So I don't want to ask this question here, but what is the barriers faced by data scientists? And I actually asked our data scientists and machine learning engineers at Cortex Logic the same kind of question. And this was interesting. This is kind of generic, so this is what they were coming up. No surprise, dirty data came out on top. Lack of data science talent, well, the data scientists saying it themselves. Lack of management and financial support. Lack of clear questions to answer. Clear questions to answer. Very important to ask the right questions. Frame the problem right. Just don't think about doing things without thinking about what you do. And then there's things like data unavailable or difficult to access. So we need to be kind of proactive, think out of the box to enrich the data as well. Very interesting. Anyway, so on Cortex Logic side, I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to leave this the presentation, but we've got some fascinating use cases and stories where we save this 100 million to 120 million per annum cost savings, 70 million rand worth of fraud and abuse. So real business cases where you solve problems. So I'm not going to go through all of that now. So towards the last part of the presentation. So as a human species, where are we? What's happening here? So we see at least 3 types of intelligence. We see assisted intelligence, augmented intelligence, and autonomous intelligence. And the interesting thing, this was done by PwC, and the larger circle, the larger the circle, the bigger the market opportunity. So you can see, they see tremendous value to be unlocked with augmented and autonomous intelligence. But they all have a role to play, especially assisted and augmented intelligence with humans. And I'm describing this in more detail there. So, okay, now I want to get to something that I haven't covered properly in last week's talks as well. And it's about trustworthy and responsibility. What's the potential harms from algorithmic decision making? And I thought there was a cool description of things from an individual harms perspective, but also from a collective social harms perspective. And and obviously there's illegal discrimination and unfair practices. And you can look at things like hiring, employment, insurance, housing, education. And then collective social harms is obviously the loss of opportunity. But then, if you think about other things like credit, then you see economic loss, for instance, of differential prices of goods. Now this is interesting. We already see this with Amazon. You're buying, people are, if you know a little bit more about you, you're getting a different price. And we are actually working with industry right now in terms of dynamic pricing, looking at your background, your history, behavioral patterns, and giving you a specific price that's more suitable to you. So it could work in your favor, but it could also not work in your favor. And then there's loss of liberty, increased surveillance, stereotype reinforcement. And this is, if you think about China as well, the fact that I know there's some good stuff there, state-led kind of innovation as well, but there could be problems like social stigmatization as well. So there are collective. So I think we need to be very aware of the dangers and risks. And this is outlining that. Now, in yesterday's talk, I made a remark around the European Union that actually made an ethics policy available. And they were specifically talking about trustworthy AI. And it's worthwhile, you can download this. You can just Google European Union or just ethics policy. And the framework here is really good to have a look at, I think, from a responsible implementation perspective. So they're talking about the 4 ethics principles: respect for human autonomy, prevention of harm, fairness, explicability. And then there's 7 key requirements: human agency and oversight, technical robustness, transparency, privacy, diversity, the things that we've talked about, accountability. And I was just thinking, based on Talitsi's talk yesterday, maybe we can bring in rationality, if we can measure it as well. But anyway, so at least they're providing a framework that one can use if you think about AI applications as you implement it. And it could be for anything. Intelligent virtual assistants. Say you've got an intelligent virtual assistant that communicates. You need to think about, does the vision and mission of the company be represented there? You think about governance around that as well. It's actually, you can't be like a cowboy around this kind of things. You need to think about what you put in there. What's the content? How does this thing communicate? Is it, because it's a representative of the company as well. So it's serious stuff. Okay, so, and I also want to refer to Asilumar AI Principles, the Future of Life Institute, worthwhile going there as well. I was last year on a panel with them as well, talking about killer robots or lethal autonomous weapons and all that kind of stuff. But 2017, there was a conference at Asilumar where they talked about research issues, ethics and values, and longer-term issues. And these 23 principles are important to have a look at. When you do research, when you actually implement solutions, these are very important things that you need to look at. Okay, so last few slides. Another book that I recommend is AI Superpowers from Dr. Fuli. And this is Fuli. He spent some significant time in Silicon Valley at Apple and Google, some breakthrough stuff. He also did a PhD in AI, then moved to China, was heading up Google there, didn't work out. Baidu, and well, there's a lot of things happening there, so he started Sinovation Ventures there. But he's got an excellent perspective, a lot of wisdom as well. Excellent perspective on Silicon Valley, China, where the world is going with this. And he's also thinking about jobs, and jobs within the AI era. And this particular presentation, he was putting jobs on an x-axis where he was going from repetitive routine, optimizing complex to creative. And he was saying that within 5 years, repetitive jobs, anything repetitive in a job will be gone. So it's not all jobs are completely repetitive. I've got one slide earlier that shows 60% typically on average of jobs could be repetitive. Well, it depends on what it is, but for sure. But if you think about routine jobs, truck drivers, those type of things as well, if you're following the same pattern within 10 years. And then anything that you optimize, if you think about a radiologist, for instance, that's trying to optimize in terms of interpretations of radiology and stuff, those are things that AI can excel at. So within 15 years, those type of jobs or tasks will be taken over. But then when you get to complex and creativity, there's obviously more space for humans to operate, although we do see AI doing things in that space as well. But what I like, okay, the year I'm actually showing some of these jobs that I've just referenced. But now the interesting thing that it did was to say, let's imagine a different world, different society, society 5.0, or a different economy, where we reward people based on not just these kind of traditional jobs, but also jobs that show more compassion, that's more human-centric. Let's value that as well. So he created this axis where you say compassion not needed and compassion needed. And if you look at this, you can add these kind of jobs, more human-centric jobs, to the top half. And obviously we want to create more on this side as well. But it's an interesting perspective, and I think something that we need to look at. He's also not talking about universal basic income. He's talking about social responsibility stipends, things like that, for instance, as well, where we reward people based on their contributions to create a better society. And I like that. I think there's some clues there how to shape a better future, a more equitable society for everyone. And then now the visualization around this is, so AI will absolutely take over this, anything around repetitive routine, optimizing, and where compassion not needed. And when you move to this quadrant here, you will see some human plus AI. The top left, you see the warm embrace of humans utilizing AI as a tool. And then when you move to the right-hand side, we expect that to be more kind of a human plus AI space, but more human space. But it's dependent on us, how we as a society, as Homo sapiens, how do we value things? There's obviously going to be contributions from AI with creativity and stuff, but it's the man-machine intelligence continuum. Is how do we use the tools? How do we adapt to all of that? And I've just plotted the autonomous augmented assistant intelligence on this thing as well. And in my last few things here, I'm very practical. I'm thinking about applications as a business and so forth, but I think we're also at a very exciting time right now. We're seeing enormous amounts of money and talent going into AI. And when I was doing my PhD in recurrent neural nets in the 90s as well, not so much. It was winter. There was a winter period. There was not so much money thrown at this. So it's a different world. We've got tons of data. We've got money thrown. So it's almost like a perfect storm, perfect world. And plenty of applications and value to unlock. But I think where we're lacking, and if you think about the third wave of AI, we need to think about perceiving, learning, abstracting, and reasoning. And you can see abstracting, there's some improvements necessary there. And I think reasoning as well. Reasoning, if you look at the frontal cortex, the way we as humans reason, we don't see that currently in the state-of-the-art systems as well. So those are areas that needs attention. And Jan LeCun from Facebook just won the Turing Award for his contributions, obviously, convolutional neural nets. But he was actually kind of summarizing it, and I see it doesn't appear nicely on this thing, but he was talking about the same things. Perception, he was saying intelligence and common sense it's a combination of perception, being predictive, so we're getting that right, memory, and then reasoning and planning. So those are things that need attention. And this is from DeepMind. They are obviously trying to solve intelligence. They are on the leading front, especially with deep reinforcement learning and the way they apply it, and some of the other technologies as well. But these are some of the things, some of the key challenges that's remaining. So I think yesterday there was talks about causality. Causality is definitely something that we want to look at and solve. But more generically, we need better algorithms. We're still working with stuff that I've implemented in my PhD as well. Same things. We've just scaled up the architectures, a lot more data. We need algorithms for unsupervised learning, memory and one-shot learning, imagine-based planning with generative models. That's another big area. And then Jan LeCun mentioned the abstract concepts as well, but learning abstract concepts. And we can do a lot more with transfer learning. As humans, we do quite a bit with transfer learning, so that's something. And then truly understanding language, understanding the semantics of language. That's another big area, and we already see it. When we implement intelligent virtual assistants, we can do a lot of stuff, create some really cool applications. If you look at what Google is doing as well, there's some really cool stuff. But to really do this at the scales that humans are doing this, we've got some work to do. So this is some of the key challenges. And this is a quote from Richard Feynman: "What I cannot create, I do not understand." So I think it's very important to really go understand the building blocks, see what they can do, implement it, and then from there you can kind of innovate and so forth. So that's my talk. I try to cover the last bits as well, so I want to open it up to Q&A, and we can cover anything. It could be research, applications, anything that you want.
Hi, Jacques. Thank you very much for the talk. I just have 2 questions related to this. So you just mentioned with regards to implementing AI solution, there's quite a bit of work that needs to take place when it comes to like change management.
Yes.
So I just wanted to get from your perspective, like how is change management, what's the best way to implement change management when you embedding AI solutions? And then second to that, you mentioned also in one of your slides that the time spent in the collection of data with regards to AI initiatives takes the longest. So from your experience, is it more around the processes or is it more around the systems that you find at the client side that results in like time spent being more around data collection?
Yeah, right. Yeah, two things, just in terms of your last question. That time spent was just to show the relative time spent between different industries. There was more emphasis, more time spent in the insurance industry relative to other things. I think in general, there is, that takes, data preparation is 80% of the, if you look at typical machine learning applications everywhere, even if you look at that other talk, some of the talks yesterday, people were talking about this. So we know that's the case, preparing data. Even if you think about working off raw pixels when you do video, audio, text, but again there, say for instance you want to do classification and stuff, you still want to do the data labeling. Well, that's why data labeling was an important thing, if you want to use supervised learning as well. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to be put into that anyway. So in terms of change management, process, I think, again, now you have to look at, first of all, you need to understand the environment where you implement the solution. So it's very important, say it's an intelligent virtual assistant, or say the AI email processing. So normally you've got actually people there that's reading the emails, tedious and stuff. Now you bring in a system that automates that. So now you need to think about, okay, you're going to create exceptions and put things into buckets. So what is that workflow now going to look like? Because their role, they're not going to do the same things that this machine is doing, all the easy cases. They're going to obviously focus on the exceptions as well. So you think about that. But you also think about if you route things to various buckets and stuff, what do people now do with those things that's routed into buckets? And so you think about from a systems perspective, you think about the actual people that was there before the system was implemented and how to reskill them to utilize this system, smart system that's utilizing it as well. And then you can also measure the effectiveness. I think it's important to say, this is what it was before, efficiency-wise, what's the impact on the business? If it's it could be things that's related to, maybe you've got SLAs and there's severe penalties. If you don't act on all of these kind of things, we know this is real. We're dealing with healthcare administrators where this is an absolute reality. And if that is not sorted out, so if you don't do it quick enough, don't do it right, there's risks. So you can actually measure it. So change management is all around all of it. You need to think about the business case, the impact, and the people, process, all 5 things, really. Okay, so that was the questions. I'm already into the next speaker's time. Thank you very much once again.